And I am live. What is up, everybody? How's everybody doing today? I am the Admiral, or my official name, the Nerdporeal life form, and I'm here to start because I'm starting a new series. It's basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking different episodes of different science fiction shows. So it could be the Orville, it could be Star Trek, good Star Trek, it could be The Expanse, it could be Babylon 5. Heck, it could even be maybe some anime shows, maybe Cowboy Bebop or Gundam or Legend of the Galactic Heroes or Star Blazers. I mean, it could this. I haven't really thought like what the I haven't thought about what the limitations would be. So, but for today, I'll be talking about the Orville season 2 mainly. But before I get into season 2, I want to talk about season 1 a little bit. So my co-host, not my co-host, my guest, my first guest is not here yet, but he will be here shortly. I will reveal him when he comes, whenever that is. So basically, the Orville is one of those shows that came out around the same time as when Star Trek was brought back on the small screen. So Star Trek, you mean New Trek, right? And I'll be like, well, yeah. So what's funny is 2017 happens. I heard about, Star Trek Discovery for like at least a year and a half before the show came out. And then when we're approaching the fall of 2017, all of a sudden I'm watching Fox and I see this show pop up and it's called The Orville. And I see, oh, it's Seth MacFarlane. First thing I thought was, oh, it's going to be a comedy because obviously, Seth MacFarlane does Family Guy. He does friggin' American Dad. He did the movies, the Ted movies, and bunch of other things. So I mean, he's been relatively successful for about 2 decades, for over 2 decades now. So I was expecting this to be a comedy like Galaxy Quest, a parody of Trek, obviously, but after watching this, I realized it had more in common with, the older Trek of Next Generation and Voyager than the new series Discovery did. Discovery felt more like it was trying to be an HBO show, but yet it's a streaming exclusive on CBS Access, which is now Paramount Plus. So hey, I mean, we're so time goes on. We get several seasons of Discovery and a bunch of other new Trek shows, Picard, Lower Decks, now Prodigy. But they really have not gotten better. They've not really been able to capture what made Star Trek timeless and endearing to fans. I mean, New Trek has its fans. I mean, there's fans that really, Trek is now very pro political when it comes to like the stories they try to tell now. And the fan base is very, in my opinion, the fans of, the new shows are, in my opinion, not kind of toxic, but that's just me. And that's just me. That's based on my observations. So, but majority of fans say that this show, The Orville, is actually really good. Now, when I first saw it, there were a few episodes I didn't really care for. But then again, I realized that, I mean, Seth MacFarlane is, I know where he leans politically. But what's weird is, despite the fact that he leans a certain way politically, which is fine. I mean, I kind of lean that way myself. He's actually willing to, I mean, his show basically shows how his show basically shows how the how humanity can be evolved in the way of, not basically giving into pettiness, villainizing other people, telling people who don't like something that they're toxic and stuff. This show is not like that at all. Heck, heck, there's times where Captain Mercer, Seth MacFarlane's character, basically has to deal with people that other species that are very closed-minded and think he's the enemy no matter what, and that there's no way they can be there's no way they can come together. So, but that's maybe one of the episodes I'm going to be talking about. So I'm still waiting for my guest, and let's see who we have here before I go any further. So we have Jake D. So he says he has a super bad connection, so he's going to be like 5 minutes. His internet lags about 4 or 5 minutes, so he's actually 5 minutes in the past. So think Back to the Future, when they sent the DeLorean back like 1 or 2 minutes in the past or in the future or something. So that's going to be he's going to be kind of like that. So there's Jake D. And then we have Punkwile here, so saying basically he's going to exist 2.5 minutes in the past. So Jake D and Punkwile, 2 Modporeals. And then we have Brian Anderson here, my friend in real life. Hey all, I'm on but silent because I'm doing trivia now. Yep. And then we have a Subhuman 84. And we have a Tim's talk here. So he says, hail to you. And a fan, and not a fan, sorry. And then another individual who I've not seen in a while, Broba Fett. What's up, y'all? Well, hey, Broba Fett, how you doing? So there you go. So I'm still waiting for my guest. I hope he comes. I don't mean that. But I hope he arrives soon because he's a big fan of the Orville. Tim knows him. Tim's talk knows him pretty well. So. Let's go back to, okay. So I actually made a list, or I actually made a little spreadsheet, or not spreadsheet, a little outline of what I wanted to talk about. So I've been watching season 2 of the Orville during the holiday break. So when I'm not working on videos, I've been watching the Orville. So I just watched season 2, episode 10. So before I go into season 2, I'm going to cover the first 5 episodes of season 2. But before I do that, just want to talk a little brief overview of season 1. And that will include, so episodes that I think are very important to season 2. So Old Wounds, the pilot, which is to me it kind of brings back, it kind of imitates Trouble with Tribbles. If you don't know what Trouble with Tribbles is, it's an original series episode. They get Enterprise gets redirected by a Priority 1 distress call to a space station, and you don't use a Priority 1 distress call lightly. So something similar happens in this episode where they get redirected. And of course, Ed Mercer, the captain in this case, is pissed off at the guy that gives the distress call. And of course, we meet new species. We learn that the Orville is part of the Union as opposed to the Federation. We also learn that Ed and what's his name? Let me see. Ed and his wife Kelly. Ed and Kelly basically have they were married. They're both in the service, part of the Union fleet, and she cheats on him because he's not available to be a husband. So she does what she does, and of course we learn that she sleeps with a blue alien that basically he has pores all over his body. So when the climax happens, basically blue liquid comes out from all parts of the body, staining the bed. So that's basically what happens. So so we have Spock's Friday Nights. Yeah, he's the guest. I sent you the link. Can you get on? I was hoping to introduce you in a wildly hilarious way, but yeah, I have the link. I sent you the link on your thing. Yeah, jump in. I don't care. Yeah, you can jump in. I figure you're going to be a little stylishly late because that's how Spock does things. So just waiting for you, and I'll let you in. I'm still going to introduce you. And before I go any further, we have Alan Copeland came in. What's up, Alan? He says hello to everybody. Remember, Alan Copeland's a big Star Wars fan, but he's also a big Star Trek fan too. So remember, Alan deserves all the respect we can give him. So there you go. And another face showed up in the chat. Enough said. What's up? How are you doing? And looks like we have a guest. This man needs no introduction. He's been a cultural icon for it's approaching 60 years now. He's been part of this franchise part of a particular franchise from the very beginning. And if you annoy him, be a thorn in his side, he will just simply pinch your neck and he will knock you out for a few minutes. So without further ado, going from science officer to ambassador and to getting trapped in another reality, a Kelvin reality. Here is the one and only Spock. What's up, Spock?
Space, the final frontier. These are the episodes of a Nerdporeal program. How's it going?
How you doing? What did you use for that?
That was a little radio thing I've been meaning to use, like a little radio effect on the voice.
Yeah, I'm gonna eventually make an intro myself. I haven't made the time to do that yet, but for a future episode of this, I'm gonna try to create an intro. Something that you would do for your thing. So basically, thanks. So here is, so I figured before we go into season 2, we're going to just skim over season 1, talk about important episodes. So I kind of started with the first episode, Old Wounds, which basically sets up, the whole show. Basically Kelly and Ed's arc. Basically they break up, and then of course Kelly, Ed's down on his, I forget exactly, I haven't watched episode 1 in a while, but Ed's down on his luck, and he gets a chance to command again thanks to Kelly putting in a good word for him with Admiral Halsey. So
yeah, right.
So that basically starts that little arc, and then of course by the end of the season, when we get to the episode where everybody worships Kelly, or I forget what they exactly call her, the Kelly or something. They consider getting back together. So I was just wondering.
That was a very interesting episode too, because I don't think we've ever seen. Well, I could be wrong, but I don't remember ever seeing such a setting like that, where a planet is caught in a phase where every 600 years time passes, but actually 11 minutes pass in our time.
Actually, there was a Voyager episode that kind of did that. There was an episode where they were stuck in orbit, and the Voyager became a religion for these people until the people eventually, I forget what the name of that episode. I think it was season 6. It was season 6. Yeah. They send the doctor, and the doctor's there for years. The doctor's there for years. He tells them about Voyager, and eventually, when the time goes by, they surpassed Voyager in terms of technology, and they were able to get them out of that. I think they were stuck I forget if they were stuck in a gravity well or something, or
it was some type of weird gravity well around the planet that they couldn't really account for their instruments on the ship. So basically, yeah, I completely forgot about that episode. Thanks for bringing that up. So it's very similar to that one, where they've become a religious icon. But what's interesting about that that episode, if I remember correctly, is they eventually outgrow them, or that's the end of the episode, but they actually start developing their own proton torpedoes, and they start shooting it at Voyager from the surface of the planet, which was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I remember. I have to. That's definitely an episode I do want to cover in this sci-fi chat. So it's not going to be like Tuesday Night Trek, where we're going over episodes in order and going over multiple episodes. For the Orville season 2, I'm going to do that, but for future episodes, I'm going to we'll talk about 1 or 2 episodes and try to go into detail, talk about scenes and stuff. So yeah, there's other channels that have done this, and believe it or not, I'm kind of copied your little Trek talking idea shamelessly because, that's the kind of YouTuber I am. I'm kind of,
It's okay, man.
So I'm bringing in a double secret guest halfway through. So halfway through is going to be 9 p.m. a secret guest. I'll give you a hint. His name, I'm not going to say what his name rhymes with because you'll know it right away. But let's just say it has something to do with a salty body of liquid. And if you figure out, don't say it. I'm sure you know who I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. So. But he's coming in halfway. But season 1. So the episodes that I think are important, I wrote this down. I actually made an outline this time. So I think About a Girl isn't a very obvious. About a Girl is a very obvious one right here. That one leads directly into episode 2 of season 2, or is very connected with episode 2. The episode Krill, I think, is another important one. This one, where we meet, what was her name? Latreia. I wrote her name down. What was her name? Talea. We meet Talea, who was the teacher on the Krill ship. That they have to go undercover because I forget the Krill developed a weapon that they were going to use against the colony. So they had to take. They had basically used like really high light, like a lot of. High radiation light to basically knock everybody out. And I have to rewatch the episode, but I know they destroyed the ship and they got, the kids and what was her name? Talea off. They got them off. And
yes, they did.
And we'll see. Well, let's just say we see her again this in an episode that we're going to talk about tonight. So
sweet.
So what did you think of, so the 2 episodes I just mentioned, About a Girl and Krill? I know you and I have talked about a Girl quite a bit, but really, I think About a Girl was really, as much as I liked the first 2 episodes, I felt the show, and I think the showrunners felt that this is truly the beginning of the show. It literally says first series production right here.
It paints down the idea of what the show is all about, and what we're gonna see throughout the show is we're going to see, comedy, but we're also going to get very serious moments like About a Girl where controversial decisions are made and our human values are, presented onto those. And it's difficult to relate, especially like Ed says, Seth's character. It's hard to relate yourselves to, the Moclans because of how different they are with human values.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've watched. Now we're not going to cover episode 7 of season 2. That'll be next time. But they talk about, or at least
they go into this a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah, Ed and Kelly talk about the Moclans, and I mean, basically, they need the Moclans. Like the Moclans are invaluable contributor to the Union. I don't know if it's weapons or something. I really need to research that. But They supply the Union with their firepower, pretty much. Okay, so, but like, I mean, the Moclans are basically, they're basically a regressive society that's very. I mean, you and I both know where Seth MacFarlane leans politically, so they're technically supposed to be closed-minded, old school, like I'm talking like, 80s, 70s, 80s religious conservatives, basically. The right. Like a certain, sexuality is, I mean, well, not quite. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as say America, but let's say earlier in the 20th century, certain countries like, let's say the UK or other countries where it's deemed, a sin to be, homosexual and stuff. Well, same deal here, but it's reversed, which kind of makes it interesting.
Heterosexual, you kind of get killed if that's the case.
Yes, so which makes this a less. It makes it bipartisan. In my opinion, makes it bipartisan. Makes it something that both sides are capable of doing evil things to each other. So there has to be like in Star Wars, there has to be a balance. You have to be able to, you have to be able to, there's extremes on both sides, and, you just can't you just cannot just assume that one side is the bad guy. It's more new. Life is more nuanced than that. So
it just depends on what they were brought up to believe, especially since the Mocklins believe that there's a male is supposed to fall in love with a male, and it's been that way for 300 years or 400 years. They're gonna see something as heterosexual behavior as something completely wrong, and that's the irony of it, because that episode is trying to show what's happened in our own history towards homosexuals and how oppressed they've been in the past. So it's kind of trying to paint that, but in a reverse, like you've said, which is interesting that they did that. It makes you wonder what we're going to see in the future, what other issues we're going to see addressed in a very unorthodox way.
Oh, with the Mocklins?
Not just the Mocklins, but I'm sure we're going to see a lot of controversial topics brought up with the Mocklins, but generally speaking, any aliens we're going to see in the future of this show, and what other arguments we're going to see in the future.
Yeah, I'm very curious about what we're going to see, who we're going to see, and what will unfold this season. So basically, yeah. One thing I read today preparing for the stream was that Seth MacFarlane and basically all the producers were were pretty nervous about how they were going to balance the comedy with what was supposed to be serious, especially with About a Girl. So
yeah. About a Girl had some moments of comedy, but they knew that this had to be a very serious episode, like a Star Trek episode.
Yeah, About a Girl is basically Measure of a Man, basically.
Yeah,
Measure of a Man, and maybe with a little bit of court martial mixed in. So, but yeah,
I always compare About a Girl to the Measure of a Man. With Data and Picard, it's the perfect example.
Yeah,
when he was trying to save him in court from being condemned non-sentient.
What's funny is the reason why I said it was like Measure of a Man, because you said it was like Measure of a Man. So I said it first just to steal your credit. So once again, Nerdporeal stealing Spock's thunder. I'm gonna get knocked out pretty soon. Nerf pinch is gonna hit me.
I want to get my giant green hand and then stop your ship. You're not going anywhere with that joke, bro.
Yeah, there you go. So, but yeah, a lot of these episodes were great. The Stars Should Appear was basically For the World Is Hollow, I Touch the Sky from the original series. Priya was basically A Matter of Time with Berlinghoff and Rasmussen from
really cool episode,
TNG.
By the way, because it's a concept I never really thought about, and it makes sense too. If you have the ability of time travel, might as well go back a couple hundred years, get a ship that's in mint condition, and boom, you make yourself a lot of profit.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea. But one thing that Priya did set something up. It sets up Geloja in a way, because Priya talks about dark matter. They deal with dark matter in the Orville, and dark matter storms are deadly. Like if you get into one, you are lucky to survive. Like you get pulled in, you're dead. The ship is destroyed.
Yeah.
So they learn. I forget what it was, but Priya puts some sort of floods the dark matter with particles to allow them to escape and stuff. And they use this idea.
She uses some very new techniques that they're not familiar with, and they're just amazed by how she's able to navigate through all of it.
So this leads into Geloja. But before I go into Geloja, there's one more episode I think is really important, and it's this one, Into the Fold. It's the one where Claire and her kids and Isaac are stranded on a moon. So I forget why they crash. But they crash on the moon, and I think Claire gets injured. It kind of makes me think of
first time her and Claire, Isaac and Claire, are starting to develop a romance.
Yeah, so this obviously leads into season 2, very big part of season 2, probably the most important part of season 2 in my opinion. We won't talk about that very important 2-parter yet. That'll be next episode, and we'll be spending spending at least an hour talking about that 2-parter. I just watched it myself. It's a great 2-parter. Oh my gosh, it's it's up there with the best 2-parters of Star Trek, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But but going back to this, so the Into the Fold is kind of makes me think of Final Mission from Next Generation. That's one where
Which
Picard,
one was that again?
That's one where it was Wesley's last episode as a regular. Will Wheaton's last episode as a regular on TNG. It was like episode 4 of season 4. That's the one where they crash on this, Will Wheaton, or Wesley, Picard, and a third guy who was like the pilot. They crash on a moon, or they crash on a desert planet. And Picard gets hit in the head. They're in a cave, and it starts to collapse. It starts to collapse, and Picard gets hit in the head with rocks and stuff. So he's on the ground, he's out, and he's injured. And they Wesley has to keep him alive. There's like some sort of Iconian. I don't know if it was Iconian, but there was some sort of weapon that kills the third guy. The driver gets killed by this weapon in this cave. And they get rescued, and that's basically, it was meant to, like, Picard was supposed to escort, I think, Wesley to Starfleet Academy.
It does remind me a bit about that survival kind of story, where one has to look out for the other.
So I think in this one,
they threw a cool twist on this too, because Clara is separated from the rest of them, and the way that separated too was awesome.
Because the ship, I think, when it's going into when it's crashing, or when it's going into the atmosphere, it doesn't like crack in half or something, like the Titanic.
That was really cool, because the camera angle that they showed it wasn't just like the entire scene was filmed from the outside in CGI. They showed like a first person perspective of Claire just like getting detached from the back of it, and it was just really scary. And like, dang,
oh yeah,
she's really lucky to be alive.
oh yeah. But I mean,
she could have just flown out.
Yeah, she could have. That's what's crazy about this. So like I said, a lot of these episodes mirror famous Star Trek episodes, but at the same time, they don't do the exact thing, and yet they manage to still keep it entertaining. So
right, yeah.
These are the episodes that I think are the most important. So Into the Fold, and About a Girl, and maybe Krill and Priya secondarily are important, but yeah, these two are important to this upcoming season. So I'm going to make my way up to season 2. Let's get up there. Yeah, I'm basically I'm on the wiki right now. So season 1. I've not read the comics. Have you read the comics? Season 1.5 or season 2.5?
No, I haven't. No, I have to definitely buy those. I didn't even know they existed.
So season 2 was meant to be...
What you say, the comics or the comments?
Comics. There's 2 comics. There's season 1.5, which takes place between seasons 1 and 2. And then there's season 2.5, which takes place between season 2 and the upcoming, New Horizons, or season 3. So without further ado, let's get started on season 2, episode 1, Jaloja. So, Jaloja is basically a bottle episode where it was not originally the first episode. It was actually Primal Urges, the second episode of the season, was meant to be the first episode. But McFarlane wanted this to be the first episode. He wrote and directed this one because, nowadays, back when Star Trek Next Generation was on, it was like 3 months. There was a break for like 3 to 4 months. So when you waited for Best of Both Worlds Part 2, it was like 4 months. You waited from like May to September or October usually. Now the waits are usually longer. This was like a whole year. This was like almost a year
for this next season to come out.
Yeah, and then 3 years, and then 3 years for season 3.
Granted, they might not have the same support CBS is, giving to the Star Trek Discovery, but it's kind of disappointing to see that they're pumping out seasons a lot faster, and Orville is just getting their season 3. Granted, there was COVID, but like you said, season 2, it took a year to come out, when it really should have been a little bit like 4 months.
With CBS, Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek is really the brand that was the reason why the brand was supposed to be the star of their streaming service. They depended on that to get people to. They depended on on newer shows to get people to subscribe and stuff. But here's the thing: their new shows aren't that good. So you know what they're doing now? They're basically they're all the shows are leaving. I mean, all the shows were on Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu for years. Like they were on as long as I could. Like as long as I've had a Roku, those shows were on all three of the major streamers. Now they're leaving them all.
Yep.
Netflix. I mean, Netflix lost the original series. Amazon.
I'm really disappointed with that. You know, it's just like I expected it to happen sooner because, you know, CBS can pull strings like that since they own the IP and everything. But it makes it very inconvenient for the rest of us, you know, because that's why they, at least that's what I believe, the management team never did that before, because they knew it would be such an inconvenience for everybody to just have to pay for a whole new streaming service to watch Star Trek, you know? So I think the best bet at the moment, if you guys are getting Paramount Plus, then go for it. I'm personally not going to be able to because I'm already paying for a ton of other streaming services. So I went ahead and just bought the shows all on Blu-ray just to save me time.
Oh, wow.
That's probably your best bet.
What shows did you buy on Blu-ray? All the Star Trek shows that are available?
All the Star Trek shows except for Enterprise. I'm ordering Enterprise soon.
Yeah, I have to get Voyager and DS9 on DVD because, you know, DS9 and Voyager are not on Blu-ray because that would take a lot of work to get them to, you know, get to the level that TNG Blu-rays, you know, the amount of work that the TNG Blu-ray is required to, you know, properly remaster. So,
and thanks for saying that because the only ones that are Blu-rayed are the original series and the TNG show,
and
the other two, and Enterprise, Voyager and DS9 unfortunately are not, so I had to grab those for DVD. But it seems that for DS9 they do have some remastered scenes. It's just the entirety of the show is going to be a pain in the butt for them to do. Yeah,
it'll be super expensive, and I mean, I would definitely, if they ask for like funds and stuff, I would definitely support it.
Oh, I would donate.
I would definitely support it. So like, I'm willing to support, you know, give money to Paramount or CBS or Viacom, whoever owns it's Viacom and stuff, whoever owns it, if they do right by the franchise, in my opinion. So right now, New Trek is not doing right by the franchise. I watched that first episode of freaking Prodigy. It looked like Star Wars. There were droids, there were drop ships, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's a starship at the end, and that's the only thing that resembled Star Trek. So, but I don't want. But we're not talking about we're not talking about New Trek. We're talking about the Orville,
another stream,
the true successor to Star Trek, in my opinion.
the true successor is the Geloja episode.
Yeah, I mean, Geloja felt like I'm thinking two. I'm sure there's other episodes, but two episodes in particular I'm thinking of is remember Data's Day? The episode was from Data's point of view, where he basically interacts with the whole crew, and they're all doing like slice of life type of things. You know, it's just another day on the Enterprise. And then there's another episode called In Theory where Picard's trying to date someone, or no, it's not Picard, it's Data that's trying to date someone. And this episode is basically all about the interpersonal relationships that the crew have, you know, are dealing with. So, I mean, so Geloja, so besides that, the main episode that this episode really takes a lot of credit for, what the original series episode, which I believe is your favorite because it really introduces the Vulcans. What episode does this what episode of TOS does this?
You're speaking of Amok Time?
I am.
Amok Time?
Yeah, because
it does definitely remind me of that.
Because he has to go back, they divert to Moklis to do a ceremony. Now, unlike Amok Time, you know, Spock will die if he doesn't go back and, you know, complete his Ponfar. Whereas this, I don't know if he's going to die, but I guess if everyone knows what Geloja is, it's basically Mocklins urinate once a year and they make a big deal about it. They go up to the top of a plateau or something and they just pee. And you know what? It sounds hilarious and it'd be something, it just sounds awesome. And of course, I
Welcome,
feel
Mr. Human Kirk, first-time viewer to the Nerdporeal live stream.
Oh, what's up? I don't even have the screen up. I'm looking at my outline right now. Human Kirk, what's up? How you doing? First time catching this Nerdporeal.
No, I like Andorian Kirk more. I'm sorry.
And then we also have Brandon Looney Tunes Fan 2000.
How's it going, man?
He's been on a previous stream. I forget which one. It was probably one of my video game streams. So let's. All right. So back to Geloja.
Back to Geloja. Yeah, I was gonna say my favorite scene in this entire episode was the beginning with Ed and what's her name, Alara, when they were speaking at the bar together and just kind of saying how much alike they are, which is cool to note that Alara Katan is basically the same person as Ed. They both have the same personalities, so it makes sense now why they're so why they work together so well, because it's almost becoming like a family.
They're both, they're both really good at what they do, but at the same time, they're both insecure about, especially their failures. So, we saw it in the last season where Lara lost someone on her watch, and the whole episode was about her being able to deal with the fact that, or get over the fact that something like that happened, because she was willing to quit and everything. So the whole episode, like, there was like a clown, like she was being stalked by like some entity or something that was causing her to see clowns, and it was almost like a horror episode in a way.
Yeah.
I have to rewatch that one, but yeah. And the same thing with Ed. Ed's been down on his luck after, he divorced his wife, Kelly. And this being a captain on the Orville is basically a second chance for him. And I'll be honest, I'm a sucker for second chances and stuff. I like to see second chances in shows, redemptions in shows, particularly, carry out and pay off at the end. If there's no redemption at the end, then it really angers me. I feel like I've wasted my time, like Game of Thrones, for instance.
I can understand that, yeah.
So that's the reason why I really like Cobra Kai, and that's actually my current project that I'm working on right now. So, which is another redemption story, but we'll talk about that at another point. So, all right, so Geloja is basically a mock time, but with another whimsical take on Bortus's race. One thing, Mocklins are pretty much they're the joke. Like every time like we learn something about them, it's like a joke. Like what was the first thing we learned about Bortus? He lays an egg. He's like, I must lay an egg, and he says it very very
serious,
stone-faced and serious.
It's like, I'm not kidding around. I actually have to lay an egg. It's what my species does.
And then he gets I forget, they get into a fight with a krill ship, I think, and he's like pissed off. He's like, what the hell's going? He's like, what the heck's going on? So
my favorite part about this show, and I think this one shows it the most, is they keep that sense of fantasy with the aliens. Like, they don't act completely like humans, especially for the way they reproduce or how they eat food. So they at least keep that fantasy, while at the same time the entire show feels very, in a respectable way, realistic, to a point where how the crew communicates with each other, how they deal with situations. And the fantasy element is obviously the starships, the crazy aliens, like what's his name? I don't know if we see him in this episode, with the guy who plays in Family Guy.
Oh, you're talking about Dan.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? Hey, let's say, hey, I'd love to join. I'd love to join your prank and stuff. You want to hear my poem? Don't worry. Don't worry. You can give me criticism. Why'd you have to dump all over it? He's another character that comes off as annoying, but like he's also very insecure himself, and he's kind of meant to be the joke.
This episode.
But it's funny. Like I was watching an episode. I think I was watching I was watching episode 10, and I forget what was he was basically hitting on I think what's her name? I keep forgetting the second Chilean security. I have her name down. Kiali,
Oh,
Tala
yeah,
Kiali.
Kiali.
So he said something in the form of, "Hey, that's beautiful," and stuff from the other table. So I mean, yeah, I hope you know what, like I hope we get this. I hope he really shines in the next season 3, like the way Yaphet shined in season 2.
This is his last season in season 3 as well for Yaphet.
I know.
So I wonder what they're gonna do with Yaphet. Probably some mitosis thing.
Yeah, they were talking about splitting. Like at some point, he's eventually going to split. So if they do season 4, he's gonna split into probably 2 new characters and stuff. Probably 2 more comedians. Probably 2 more comedians. Yeah. You know, that are
I hope
closely.
some good comedians too.
Oh yeah, whoever. I mean, Seth MacFarlane's a huge fan of Norm Macdonald, so that's why he brought Norm Macdonald on board. And
yeah,
it's awesome. Like I like Norm Macdonald as Yaphet. And what's funny is we actually see Norm Macdonald as Yaphet in the episode where we see his human form, like we see Isaac's human form in episode 7. But that's down the line.
Yeah,
but it was cool seeing that.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's another perfect example, Yaphet, of the fantasy element that I was talking about within the Orville, where he obviously offers realistic conversations with the people. Everyone. Especially the daily life of the Orca when it's filmed inside, it really feels like some kind of university or some military training program, just something actually happening. It's not like Discovery where you just don't really believe in the dialogue. It all feels plot armored. You know what I mean? It's just, this feels like the dialogue flows a lot more naturally in this show. And like I was saying, Dan is in this episode, which we'll get into in the later act. And I feel like the makeup they do for these characters just tops it all off, because you see in Discovery and Picard, they make most of their aliens non-practical. They're all made out of CGI. But
absolutely.
That's not the case with Mike Henry's character.
Yeah, I mean, what was the first thing we see? We don't know his race. He just kind of shows up. I guess
we still don't know. Yeah,
we still don't know what his race is. And I mean, Dan just sounds like a dude, like a human and stuff. But what's funny is I find his character endearing, despite the fact that he acts very human. Which that's this one little slight beef that I have in this. I give New Trek the same crap about this. Is that some of the aliens, like the Salayans, and of course, the Salayans and whatnot. Who else was there? Salayans and of course him are very human talking. Like they talk like they're from the 21st century and stuff.
And then you do get your share of like Star Wars kind of aliens. The one who sold Bortus that very exquisite program. For the holodeck.
Oh yeah, it was basically like it looked like a rhinoceros with a face of a phallus. Like he's literally, it's basically a penis creature, kind of. I said it. And so they're
no, I mean, you're not wrong. It's a very odd looking creature. But that's the best part of the show, is because that was an actual outfit somebody was wearing, walking around in that, which is, I just give more props to the creative team on this, making all that makeup, the foam, the fake skin. It looks amazing.
It would be funny.
It's just something you don't see.
It would be funny if, like, Dan's race was instrumental in helping in the fight against the Kaylon and stuff. I really kind of, now that I think of it, I kind of want to see it now.
We just completely underestimate his species. That could be possible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like, there's an open canvas to, like, they can continue. He could continue to be the joke, which I think is the likely thing. But I mean, they could develop him more. The way they developed Yaphet, gave him a moment to shine.
He is an engineering after all, which is kind of saying, like a little hint that he is, kind of dumb socially, but he is a pretty smart guy at the same time.
Yeah, he's in engineering, and so he's part of this episode. Like, so Dan in this episode, I believe, I think it's this episode. Yes. Dan in this episode is so basically Alara is, like we're talking about earlier, Alara is like, she's lonely. She doesn't have, companionship or anything. And, she's kind of, insecure and awkward herself. And then, of course, Bortus, of all people, sets her up on a blind date. And we find out that the blind date is Dan. And Dan tells her a poem, and the poem is cringe as hell. And she's trying to be polite because, that's the type of character she is. And then, of course, Dan says, well, be honest with me. Like, what'd you think? You can criticize me. And then she criticizes him. And all of a sudden he backpedals and says, you didn't have to dump all over it. And then he gets pissed off. So, like, you could tell that he was he's the character that, they'll take. He's kind of like Bark. He's kind of like Barkley. Like, he's not the most likable character amongst the crew and stuff. Yeah. But I think
he's just got a very odd social development with the crew because I guess I don't know if it's just his species, maybe him as a person. He's just not, he's just a socially awkward person.
I'd like to think I'd like to think it's because he's alien and stuff, different mannerisms. His mannerisms and his the way that he's probably at home is a lot different. They're probably a lot more, judging by the way his character is, I'm guessing his home planet is a lot more open about their personal life and stuff. Yeah. And of course, the first time we ever see Dan is in season 1, where he says basically, "Hey, let's add music to the elevator or to the." I don't know what they call it in Star Trek. I don't know if it's the turbo. In Star Trek, it's called the turbo shaft, obviously, or the turbo lift. I don't know what they call it in the Orville.
Yeah, that's a good question because you're right. It is the turbo lift in Star Trek. It could be referred to as the same thing in the Orville. I've seen them do that with what was it? It's escaped me. There was another another terminology that they use in the Orville. The same one that they use in Star Trek. It might be warp. I keep thinking warp.
It's quantum drive. They use the quantum drive in the Orville. So that I do know.
Okay, so it's not.
So let's look at some of the other elements of this episode. So to follow up on Priya, the episode where with the time traveler who knows how to detect dark matter, we meet Janelle Tyler. And Gordon tries to woo her, and she is by all definitions very, very attractive. And that's an understatement. She's very hot. And so the whole episode's him trying to get her attention. She's just like, yeah, whatever. She just doesn't take any notice of Gordon's attraction to her and stuff. So it's a nice little endearing, little plot line, And we eventually find out at the end that it's ultimately Ed that she wants to that she's interested in. But we find out the reason in episode 4. So I won't spoil that yet. So but that was what'd you think of that little plot line, with Janelle and Gordon and building up to basically episode 4?
Well, what happens in episode 4, I honestly did not see coming. That's how you know that they really took their time on the writing for that. Because at first, I mean, some people are probably different, and they saw her as being very suspicious at first. But I honestly saw her as a new character that they were introducing into the show, a new member of the crew, and man, were we surprised.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I mean, I'm really glad that they're they're doing stuff like that. It's even though I mean, this show is written with Star Trek fans in mind when it comes to it, so they don't want to necessarily follow the exact same beats. They kind of want to they're creative in how they do stuff. Like that one episode with there was a little murder mystery episode with the Mocklin. That we talked about this. The straight Mocklin. You think it's one thing, but it's actually something totally different. that happens,
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's I forgot about that myself, and I was just like, wow, that this is like, a lot of thought goes into the writing. So, but let's go on. Okay, so the next thing is, Ed and Kelly in this episode. So Ed's miserable and Kelly is happy. Why is she happy? Because she's dating Cassius, the teacher. And how does Ed feel about this? Ed is jealous. And you know what he does? He takes the shuttlecraft and spies on her quarters from outside the ship.
I forgot what they referred it to as well. A drive-by thing. I forgot what they referred to.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I'm like, I forgot about that.
That was amazing. Like, see, this is the stuff that I feel like is very well balanced. They have their serious moments, like what happens in About a Girl, but then they also use the Star Trek Orville technology, excuse me, to a comedic benefit. So he's saying that something in a way, Seth MacFarlane is saying, well, there's cloaking ships on the shuttles. So do you think there isn't anybody in the Union who might be sneaky enough to just invade in somebody's conversation just by cloaking themselves with a shuttle? That's the comedic balance right here, where he's like shown real quickly that he cloaks his ship, and she already noticed it. And I thought that was hilarious.
I forgot that they had. Now, is it only the shuttles that have the cloaking technology? Because I don't think the Orville itself has. I think it's just the shuttles. So there's no. What is that treaty? The Treaty of Algeron or something that prohibits cloaking technology on starships and Star Trek. So
in Star Trek, yeah,
we haven't really dealt with any species that use cloaking devices.
I think there was a very good reason also from the Treaty of Algeron of why they don't use cloaking technology, is because they rather be viewed as explorers rather than being viewed as sneaky and almost as a aggressive force. Because if you were to find a cloaked ship in your area of space, say the neutral zone, that could be looked upon as an aggressive threat, and
yeah,
it's interesting to see that the Union doesn't have such a treaty. So maybe we'll see something in season 3 where they eventually outlaw the cloaking technology, or if they keep it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see if there's any species in the Orville universe. My gosh, that universe is like, it's just, there's so much they can do with it. Like, I can only imagine, like, if they ever make any, like, spin, if Orville's successful enough that they can make their own spin-offs, kind of like, Star Trek made its own spin-offs like that there's so much to add and explore to the Orville. It's ridiculous. Like, there's just so many details that are just waiting to be filled in. So I'd be very interested in what they do with the cloaking technology. Obviously Kelly stays with Cassius throughout the first first half of this season. It's too bad we didn't get to keep him, though. I actually liked his character. And who do we get replaced with? Marina Sirtis.
I mean, despite what she does in on Twitter and everything, it was cool nonetheless to see a cameo of Deanna Troi on the Orville. It kind of shows how dedicated the Star Trek cast, sorry, not the Star Trek cast, the Orville management is in hiring cameos for Star Trek actors, because they know that, and they're not afraid to admit that this show is inspired by Star Trek, but is bound to be completely something different, obviously.
To be its own thing.
So it was, yeah. So it's always cool to see cameos, especially if it's from people like Marina Sirtis. But I eventually think we're gonna probably see George Takei, or as much as as much as I'm a big fan of him, I do appreciate his character as Sulu. And I think that's what they're trying to do, is kind of throw that nostalgia back for the fans. Like, oh, you remember her? She used to play Deanna Troi. Look, now she's in the Orville,
I mean, yeah, well, like we get that.
They're not giving her... Go ahead.
Yeah, we get that. I mean, we see Tim Russ. We see Tim Russ later in the season. He plays he plays obviously he plays a human, but he plays like he's in that time capsule episode. Robert Duncan McNeil. Robert Duncan McNeil's involved. He doesn't act, but he directed the 5th episode, which is the birthday episode, the astrology episode, that'll be the very last episode we'll get to. Yeah, the Jelly X. He directed that one, so he's involved. Of course, Robert Picardo plays Alara's father, and we're going to get to that in the 3rd episode, which is called Home. So it kind of makes, So there's a lot. It's you're cool right.
That they're doing that. That's always. It's just like they're not focusing on them as much as main characters, but we can at least look forward to seeing our favorite actors again portray some kind of character in space, like they're the setting that they were meant to be in. Robert Picardo, in my opinion, his best role is the Doctor, and he's played in several different movies and television shows. But for me, watching Star Trek for the first time, it could be just my own personal bias, of course, but watching Star Trek for the first time and seeing where all those actors led to, especially Jonathan Frakes, my favorite roles will always be them in Star Trek, because that just feels like where they belong and where they can express themselves the most. And Robert Picardo was very well written, in my opinion, in Voyager, because he had a great character development of learning who he was and how he should interact with the crew. So at least we can look forward to more scenes with him. And you mentioned, the Tim Russ episode. The scenes where they were him and Gordon were talking, just that back and forth dialogue, it felt like a remastered Voyager episode for a second, just because of how the scenes are shot. It's very similar.
Yeah, that's true. So before we go, we get to see a plethora of actors that have worked on Star Trek in the past. And I know in this upcoming season 3, I don't know if you saw that screenshot of they're on the bridge and there's the alien president, and there's a woman. Awesome. You know who plays the alien president? Captain Sheridan. Is it Captain Sheridan himself from Babylon 5?
I thought so. What's crazy is I put a tweet out saying that I can't wait for this, and I think you saw it. It blew up because the Orville retweeted it and liked it. And 2 minutes later, Bruce Boxleiter liked it. And I'm like, wait, that's interesting. Why is he liking this? And I look on his Twitter page, and he's reposted it and also made his own post about the Orville. And just from there, I'm like, okay, he is somebody in this picture. He's definitely in this show. And I thought it was the alien. So I'm so happy that's the case.
It's funny that he plays the president. I'm guessing he plays president of the Union, kind of like the president of the Federation.
That's awesome.
He becomes the president based on everything that happens in first seasons 2, 3, and 4. He's not in season 1, but he's in seasons 2, 3, and 4. He becomes the president. Mm-hmm. He becomes president of the new Earth government. I'll say this. So he's already been a president in science fiction.
Character. Yeah, and that's a perfect role for him, because Bruce, my favorite role of him has always been Commander Sheridan in Babylon 5, and eventually him being Tron.
Have you seen Babylon 5?
Oh yes, of course.
Okay, good.
I own it on Blu-ray just because why not? I saw it for sale the same time I was buying Star Trek DVDs, and I didn't know they remastered the original Babylon 5 show.
Babylon 5 is a series that I do want to talk about. There's a couple episodes I do want to talk about. There's one really poignant episode from season 1 that I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts on. It's one of those episodes that really punches my gut every time I watch it. I think you might know what I'm talking about. It revolves a kid, and it revolves parents that are against surgery and stuff.
Oh yes, that is a very good episode. I'm 100% down to talk about you with these, because Babylon 5 was something I watched after Star Trek, after I finished Star Trek, and I was really depressed for a while because it was like, dang, there's no more Star Trek to watch. And this was after 2005, watching all of Enterprise, and I'm like, wait, Babylon 5, what is this? And I look into it and I see Bruce is, he's the main character, but obviously Michael O'Hare is the commander for the first couple seasons, I believe, until he steps away because of some medical problems. But I have to admit, usually they have really bad recasts and the next person isn't really able to hold it up. But Bruce did a great job of being the commander in Babylon 5, and in my opinion, is the only one I think of for the commander of Babylon 5.
I agree. I really liked him a lot. But before we go talk any further, our second guest has arrived. Our double secret guest, special guest has arrived. And you might know him. His name rhymes with bike. And his name, his channel name, has something to do with a body of salt water. Everybody, welcome, Pacific 414. How are you, my friend?
Good. Well, thank you for the nice introduction.
Yeah, I figured you were going to be my double secret guest. Kind of like double secret probation, Animal House. Same idea.
But I have a question. Where's my corner piece of cake? You promised me a corner piece of cake, and then I could sing it, and then everybody would be quiet.
A quarter piece of cake.
Please give it to me before someone else breathes. Okay, I hate this party.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that was Identity Part 1. Give me the corner piece. Here, have this piece of cake. So
Mike,
how you
were the engineer on the USS Tuesday Night Trek, or the security chief?
Hi, laddie. I'm the chief engineer. Don't get in my way while I'm working on my engines.
So
Thank you, laddie.
Are you giving it all she's got?
I'm giving it more than all she's got. I'm getting out there. I'm pushing.
So, Mike, how long do you need for repairs?
I only need a half hour.
You got 10 minutes. You got 10 minutes. Get it done.
I can't do it in 10 minutes.
We only got 10 minutes. We're about to get destroyed by the Krill. Oh wait, sorry, wrong franchise.
Well, I guess our luck's run out.
Well,
I can't believe he wants me to do it in 10 minutes. What kind of miracle worker does he take me for?
Well, remember your early teachings of the Kobayashi Maru.
That's
basically
true.
let's just all give
screwed.
up. Let's just all we're screwed. Let's give up. Everybody, chat, just give up. Just give up on us. No, I'm kidding.
That's something we should do for a stream one day. What will we have done personally in the Kobayashi Maru?
Well, it tastes. I mean, it's like in that there's that episode with Gordon, and he's trying to take up command. I know we're kind of skipping through episodes right now, but to kind of follow up, Gordon tries to go into the command program, and he goes through such a similar like Kobayashi Maru. Well, not quite Kobayashi Maru, like a situation where he has to be creative enough to come up with a solution, and he just fails. And they're like, "Are you sure you want?" And Kelly's like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you're not just trying to pick up chicks with this?" Because he tells the first girl, he's like, "Hey, guess what I'm doing? I'm part of the command program. I'm going to be a captain one of these days," and blah blah blah. So, yeah. Gordon's the man. What can I say?
Yep, he is. He's my favorite character on the entire show. And speaking very briefly of season 3 and that picture we got, I was actually kind of upset not to see John Lamar. So I hope he's still in season 3.
Well, John Lamar
is an engineer.
He's an engineering. He's not on the bridge anymore. At least in season 2, he wasn't. I mean, he was only on the bridge in Identity Part 2 when they needed people on the bridge. Needed the best to be up there. At least I think. So, yeah, I think. Oh, John Lamar will definitely be back. I'm sure.
Sweet.
So
sweetness.
Going back, let's go back to season 1. Or back to Geloja. So we learn that Isaac basically starts giving Ty, Claire's youngest son, piano lessons, and that once again brings Isaac and Claire closer. I mean, once again, setting up their relationship that they're going to have. So, and the other big storyline is that the older son Marcus ends up getting in trouble with this kid named James, and they tamper with the food synthesizer, and they tamper with like the computer to change the grades and stuff. And of course, the James is unlikable little jerk that lies to his parents and tells them that Marcus is the one that's doing all the stuff. So
well, even his parents act like, oh, James wouldn't do this. James is an innocent little angel, and you as a viewer, you're watching, you're going, innocent little angel, my ass.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So once again, there's always going to be parents out there that are too busy to take care of their kids, and they're not willing to see that that their kids are doing stuff, that they're how would I say it, like they're not willing to look at reality. There's no self-awareness, and they can't accept reality, basically. And I mean, it's true. I mean, it happens. I guess it happens all the time in parent-teacher conferences, especially, kid bullies another kid. I mean, there was one time I got punched in the face, and the kid told his parents that I started it. So I was the one that ended up getting in trouble, and I had to, I lost a day of recess and had to write 100 sentences, which is humiliating for a 10-year-old. So. But yeah, that's just how it is. So I just, once again, I hope I'm glad, the shows like this show this type of stuff. So,
yeah.
But once again, this episode kind of felt like, everyone was preparing for like the prom, preparing for a big thing, and everyone's trying to ask each other out, say, hey, you want to come with me to the Geloja ceremony? It's like Isaac.
It's a weird thing to ask a friend to come to. I loved what Gordon said too. Oh, you want to? You like pee?
would you guys go on a date? Say hey, or not? I mean, would you guys take dates to a Geloja thing if it really existed? Say hey, you know what?
No,
no, not really. No,
no
even if that was your.
So. I'd be exactly like Gordon. Hey, I'm Gordon. You like pee?
Yeah, exactly. But hey, that's how
concur with Spock.
Hey, okay, but hey, that's how good these characters are. I mean, they're willing to,
They're willing to, yeah. That shows the true friendship. I agree.
But what's funny is when they
go see their friend pee.
It's when they reveal it. I think Gordon, of course, laughs or makes a joke of it or something. Because just the way Boris is very, he's very stone faced and serious about the stuff, which makes it comedic gold in my opinion.
Yeah, I love the writing, and I feel like the comedy. Go ahead.
Not only that, the other thing I like about this episode is that you have John trying to teach Gordon how to pick up women, and they're in the simulator, and when it's at level 1, it's so easy, and then Lamar changes it to level 8 and it becomes so difficult for him, and then Gordon fakes that he's dying to get sympathy and get a cheap date.
Yeah
that was hilarious. He's like, oh, I'm gonna die in a couple weeks. Like, seriously, I'm dying. So that, my friends, I think my favorite part of the end of this episode was definitely Geloja.
That's just a great. I just like that word Geloja. It's super funny and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, this was basically a bottle episode. So Geloja, great episode, great way to reintegrate the audience with the characters, and basically setting up the rest of the season. So let's now move on to episode 2, Primal Urges. And I'll be honest, this episode, you would think this episode is strictly a comedy, but it's not just a comedy. There is a very serious the B plot is a very serious element. It was one that I shed some tears about.
Yeah.
And it ultimately, helped with the A plot, helped resolve the B plot. The stuff that happens in the B plot helps resolve the A plot. So what is the A plot? The A plot is Bortus has a basically has a porn holodeck addiction. So he gets a bunch of different porn holo programs of him being, subjected to, a big muscly, Mocklin dude. And he's like, he's either at a doctor's office or he's in prison or other
I would
situations.
like some water.
I like some water. Yeah. Other situations to get, basically, typical porn, as far as the plot goes in the porn. So that's where you go. So Bortus has this porn addiction, and at the same time, what the Orville is doing as the B plot is they find a planet that is being consumed by this red dwarf star. It's the last planet in the system. So the entire solar system is pretty much history. And they find out that there's still people living on that planet, despite the fact that the planet's been slowly being consumed for like at least a couple hundred years. So all the people went subterranean. So they find this out and they decide to devise like a rescue operation. So, but before we go back into that, let's go back to the A plot with Bortus having this addiction, and he continually lies to Clyden, his mate, about it. So what happens? So what does Clyden do as a result?
He kills him.
Yeah, stabs him in his sleep, because that's another funny thing about the Mocklins is that if they want to divorce you, they kill you.
They stab you right in the chest.
Stab you right in the chest, because you know what?
It's funny when I see stuff like this because they're really exaggerating the Klingon traditions, and it's funny too. It's not like making fun of it. At the same time, it's just exaggerating how different cultures might view, divorce or marriage, and it's really funny to see how the Mocklins go about it.
I like how like these races in the Orville are more nuanced than simply the Mocklins are not necessarily the Klingons or the Vulcans or the Cardassians of the Orville. I mean, they got basically elements of they have elements of different ideas of the Star Trek races, and the same with the Selains too. Even though I think the Selains are a little too human in my opinion. But that's a discussion for the next episode that we're going to talk about, episode 3. But we find out why Bortus has this porn addiction. But before he has his porn addiction, like we mentioned earlier, he buys this super stimulating porn from what's his name? Lieutenant Unk, the guy, the alien penis guy. So Lieutenant Unk, and he just basically he speaks very Star Wars. He speaks a Star Wars language, in my opinion, and just gives them a stimulating pornography. And there's a computer virus in that pornography, so it messes up the systems on the ship. And it keeps them from it keeps them from being able to conduct that mission that the B plot focuses on. So. Any comments on Bortus's funny porn addiction? And we find out why he has the porn addiction. And it's actually a very sad.
Like you said, it's a lot more. The show is a lot more nuanced with its characters. I feel what Bortus is doing, as much as you would want to call this show a parody, it does focus what we would probably do if we did have holodecks. Because what he's doing is something I wouldn't put past people if we did have that technology. Some people would be creepy enough to just jump into a porn program and then have at it. But it's something we would have never seen in Star Trek, that's for sure. I mean, we kind of got it with Barclay, but it wasn't really... It wasn't really as extreme as this episode.
Oh no, it wasn't a porn addiction. It was just a holodeck. It was just basically, it's like watching too much TV or playing too many video games and not really, going out and,
that was more of like he
life.
couldn't really be himself in the real world, but he could be more of himself in the holodeck. In my opinion, that story is not the same as this, because this one is dealing with a completely different issue. The human mind, even though it's a Moclan, but how different are Moclans really from humans? Obviously, there is that difference in culture. But
and
everyone has
eggs.
like the title suggests. Yeah, and they lay eggs. Yeah. But as the title of this episode suggests, that everyone has primal urges.
Exactly. And I mean, the reason why people are addicted to porn or they're addicted to anything like drugs or anything is because there's generally a hole. There's like an emotional hole in their life. There's something that's just like, they're not happy and they need to find something to fill that hole. So in this case, Bortus, that hole in Bortus's heart is what Clyden did to him in About a Girl, when they subjected their daughter to surgery to become, force the little girl to become a boy. Mm-hmm. And Bortus never forgave Clyden for that. He resents him, and that is when this episode, in my opinion, shifted from comedic to serious. And then
it became a serious drama at that point.
Yes. And then because Ed and the rest of the crew find out, they are in communication with the Nixians, which are the people that are living underground. By the way, the original actress that was supposed to play the president of the Nixians, or the main councilwoman or something, it was originally supposed to be Kira Nerys herself, Nana Visitor.
That
I read this in the wiki, and the reason why she didn't play the role is because her agent forgot to tell her about it. So she has a horrible agent. So.
We could have seen Nana again. I really do want to see her again.
Yeah.
In the Orville would be awesome, because they actually know how to direct scenes. So we'll probably get some pretty good dialogue from her if they decide to put her in the show.
Yeah, I'd love to see the I don't know if we really saw anybody from DS9 yet. I don't think we did. So I'd love to see people from DS9. So Bortus and Isaac are the only ones that can basically take a shuttle down to the planet where the Nixians are located, to get to the subterranean, because they're the only ones that can withstand the radiation that's coming from the red dwarf. So they go in, and they realize that there's 75 people. There's only 75 people left. So they basically draw a lottery, and only 30, so less than 50% of the people can be rescued that the shuttle can, have, that can accommodate. So Bortus basically experiences all of this. They get the people out, they save everybody. He obviously gets chewed out by Mercer because of the virus that nearly caused the Orville to be sucked into the red dwarf. Bortus at the end of the episode tells Clyden that with what I've experienced just now, I no longer feel the way I do towards you. I am thankful for you, and I'm thankful for I forgot their son's name, Topa. I'm thankful for you, and I'm thankful for Topa. And it was the end of the episode, and I shed a few tears. So it went from being really funny to being very heartfelt. And I love this episode. This was a great episode too. So I just wonder what your guys' thoughts on this are.
My thoughts, but definitely this episode made me tear up, as well as many others. I would have to gather my thoughts on which ones exactly. I know for a fact the one we were talking about earlier with the straight Moclan, that episode made me tear up. And obviously About a Girl. This is, like you said, it has a great balance between, this one feels more of a comedy, maybe 70, I don't know, 70-30 more comedy than serious. But it's like towards the end of this episode, we get more serious tone from Bortus, exclaiming that he is very lucky and he's happy that he has Topa, rather than no one. It's a very good reflection on the individual of how certain things affect especially Bortus in this episode. For me, this episode is mainly about Bortus because he's suffering from a bad marriage and what basically causes him to get into his hollow addiction with the porn.
Yeah, so, and him witnessing, like, these when they determine like there's only 30, they cannot come back for a second run to rescue more people. He's seeing these people, the 30 that survive, like they have to say goodbye. They have to say goodbye to the people that they're leaving behind to die. I mean, can you imagine being in that situation? And that gives Bortus new perspective. And this is a sign of great writing. This is a sign of great writing on, from the Orville. They
know how to pull at your heartstrings. Like, any scene can kill off a character. Any scene can blow up a ship. But the flow of how this episode specifically does it, they know how to build up the audience's reaction into where you could care for a character, and at the end of the show, potentially lose that character, and which eventually pulls at your heartstrings. And they're very, yeah.
And New Trek hasn't learned, and New Trek has still not learned from this.
No,
like they try to. I
don't think they ever will.
No, I don't think so either. But you have anything you want to add, Mike?
Yeah, I was going to say what helps the Orville in doing that is the fact that they have someone like Brandon Braga there. They have Joe Minosky there, and they have Andre Baramis, who was also their science expert on Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, working on the Orville. So they're bringing in stories that they probably pitched for Voyager, TNG, and DS9 into the Orville and molding them into the Orville's universe. And what I like about Primal Urges is, in my opinion, I think it balances the comedy and the drama very well. Especially when the virus is affecting all the ship's systems, where the ship's about to be engulfed by the star. And it's up to first John to go into the holodeck and try to remove the virus. And when he can't remove it, Isaac goes in and has to remove the virus. It gives you that, heart-wrenching moment with Bortus and his current relationship with Clyden because of what happened in About a Girl, but also, pulls at your heartstrings, like you guys were saying, when you only have 39 people that you can select out of hundreds of people to survive on that planet.
And you have to do it really quick. I mean, they have they have minutes, or they barely have minutes to do this, and so they have to do this quickly. I mean, that's a hard thing to process.
And one of the things that Spock and I had talked about when we watched this episode a few months back is the visual effects in the Orville. They use practical models, they use CGI, and they use them both very well in the show.
I hear this is that what they used for the Red Giant, it was a real Red Giant.
Nice. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I looked it up.
What do you mean? Like footage from a NASA video, or? I
think so. I'm not sure. I'll have to.
That's crazy. If that's the case.
I mean, I think I'm right, but that's why I read I was skimming through, researching the episodes, and I kind of saw that. So I might be wrong. If there's a bigger expert out there, that can correct me, please do so. But this was this was a great episode, great continuation into the season. So anything further before we go on to the next episode?
No, I have nothing further to add.
I think, me neither.
All right, then let's go on. Now we are on the third episode, Home. So this is the final episode of Halston Sage as playing Alara Kitan. So what do we find? So what's the premise of this episode? Well, basically, she starts getting weaker. her muscle mass is going down, her bone density is going down. And we realize this is because she's been off planet for a very long time. Now, Saleya is, I'm not sure exactly I don't know if it's 10 times gravity like Namek is in Dragon Ball, but it's a much harsher place to live compared to someone with, Earth's gravity. So she's having it. She's struggling. Her body's basically adjusting to, Earth environment as opposed to her, natural environment. And if she doesn't get home soon, which is another kind of loose connection to in my opinion, to Amok time, she doesn't get home, she's going to be the effects that she's dealing with are going to be irreversible. So they get her home, and we get to see her mom and dad again. And of course, her dad is Robert Picardo. I forget his character's name. I call him Mr. Keaton, and he is basically a professor, and he's a scholar. He kind of, and him and Alara have a kind of equivalent relationship. I mean, maybe not nearly as bad as Spock and Sarek, but a very similar one where he doesn't really agree with the direction that she decided to go in. And then she doesn't quite have the, the intellectual capacity that normal Salayans have. So he was always kind of disappointed in her. So we get to see a little bit of that.
I think it's not so much of the educational aspect. She's very smart. It's just more of her, I guess her motivation, her passion wasn't towards that. And she really wanted to explore space, just like the rest of the Orville crew, which is something a lot of, Zilayans are very against because they're pacifists.
Now, so if I remember correctly, they're still part of the Union, right? They're part of the Union, but they're not really. They're
part of the Union, but they don't really supply them with anything.
They don't really do anything militarily.
Other than I guess security chiefs. They don't really supply the Union with much. And I think maybe that's something we could see in the future, that they secede from the Union.
Oh, why do you think that? I'm curious.
Mainly because of their own prejudice. They're against military. They
look down
rather
on it.
They'd rather solve issues not with violence but with
diplomacy.
Either diplomacy, or if anything, they seem like the type that just ignore issues that don't relate to them.
Yeah,
so if something is happening to the Earth, in their opinion, it's not their problem.
I see. So yeah, that could be an interesting to see. So obviously we see the tension. There's tension between her and her father. So that, and then we also meet her sister. And her sister, to me, in my opinion, was kind of annoying because she sounded very human. She sounded like a 21st century woman. Oh my God, how are you? Something like that. I'm just I'm like, come on, you guys should know better than this. But then again,
they're painting out the Zilayans, I guess, as very human. They have the same social customs that we do. They probably also have a Twitter that's probably called Quitter or something.
Quitter. But once again, Orville does not nearly do as bad of a job with dialogue as New Trek. Like New Trek, they can't write aliens for the world. Like every alien sounds like a 21st century Earthling. Like you had Irish Romulans, you had an Irish or rock star sounding British Romulan and stuff. You had freaking I forget, but there's
accent Klingons.
Yeah. So I do appreciate that, when there are aliens and then they add that they act alien, it's a bonus in my opinion nowadays. So
yeah, just like Unk.
but I still like Robert Picardo. He still plays a really good alien, he still plays a really good alien, but he's not quite as he's not quite as alien as let's say the EMH, but he's still a great, Picardo's a great actor. And like you said, he's his greatest role is in Star Trek, and him being in the Orville just gives more of that legitimacy, in my opinion, to to science fiction and to, in my opinion,
He's a
escapism.
great actor. Yeah, he's a great actor. And the thing about the Zilayans, I've always viewed them as, yeah, they're very human in the terms of how they speak and how they communicate with their, which is probably why they were able to get along with the Union so well. But you can kind of see the alien aspect of them compared to humans. Humans, not everyone obviously, but a good majority of us are willing to help people. We're willing to help people that we don't even know, or we're very generous. The Zilayans, that's the alien aspect of them. They don't feel that way at all. They're more. And Robert Picardo, he's a great actor, so he knows how to tune himself into this character, who is somebody who has no military interest, only wants to succeed for his own goals and to provide for his own family, not to benefit the rest of Zalea, but just to benefit him and his own. Which is very, in my opinion, unhuman of them. But obviously, it works because there's Zalayan.
And I mean, once again, like, the only alien aspect of the Zilayans, which I can forgive, is like when they're off world, they're basically like Vulcans. They have a strength equivalent to Vulcans. Maybe a little bit stronger. I don't know if you would agree with that, Spock, but they're very strong, and that's the big thing.
Oh, Zilayans try Hulk level strong. They would squash a Vulcan.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, like especially in that first episode where he's like, open this jar of pickles. And I think she literally kicks, like, she doesn't just kick the door open, she breaks the entire frame of the door. So even Spock is not okay. So yeah, I agree. They're stronger. They're stronger than Vulcans. Okay, I stand corrected.
And the fact that they can jump really high, it's just like that's in their own gravity too, which was crazy. We saw Alara just jumped really high. I think it was their own planet. I might be. No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. You remember that episode? I believe it was in season 1 where we saw Bashir's father again, but he was playing some sort of scientist.
Yeah, that was the first episode.
Yeah, it was the very first episode, and Alara just jumps really high above the ground, kind of showing that their gravity is so intense on their own planet. She's basically the Hulk.
It's like it's like she's on the moon. It's like she's on the moon when it comes to gravity. Like it's nothing.
And what was a crazier thing? I don't know if it was from About a Girl or an episode in season 2, where they point out in the courtroom that obviously Alara is able to shape that titanium cube into a ball, but they also mentioned that a Zilayan male could do that with less ease. So they're kind of saying that Zilayan males are 10 times stronger, which is really interesting. Hopefully we see that one day.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to this episode, you learn a lot about the Zilayans very quickly in this episode. From the fact that, Robert Picardo's character doesn't look too highly upon humans, to the fact that the gravity on Zalea is much stronger than it is on Earth. I mean, we even see it in that episode with Ed and his ankle breaking, and
yeah, that's true.
Also, Molly Hagan, who plays Alara's mother, well, she was the first Vorta we ever met in DS9, Eris.
That was her? Well, that is her, yeah. In the Jem'Hadar episode.
Yeah. The season finale for season 2.
Yeah, it was weird. She had that ability to she could. It was that's something that they did not continue with. Apparently, she could spit out like an energy ball out of her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Something that they decided to abandon after that episode. I guess they thought it was ridiculous. Kind of like Q's force field in the beginning of Next Generation. Something they kind of abandoned. Hope the audience would forget about. So, yeah, it was interesting. One of those things that just kind of popped in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we didn't get that far. Let's go back. So they go to an island. Alara gets back to they bring her back to Zalea, and she's struggling. She can't walk. So her parents help her into a chair, and she's like basically wheelchair bound, I believe. And they take her to an island to a second home that they have on an island that is usually rented by a majority of people, but because of the off season, there's nobody there except for another couple. And we meet this couple, and the couple is one of them, the husband is Dr. Phlox himself, John Billingsley. So they come and they're like, hey, has there been any weird people on here? Because it looks like somebody's been, into our stuff. And we find out that they were just basically, they were just there to basically discredit Robert Picardo because they had a son. Their son was a professor. He had views on vaccines or something, or what I would say equivalent to vaccines or anti-vaccine. And he got discredited. And because he got discredited, he was ruined. He lost everything, and he ultimately committed suicide. So they're basically out for revenge. They want Robert Picardo to basically say that he was wrong publicly. And of course, from their intentions, they're going to kill him regardless. So it was kind of messed up how we initially learned this. They're making some sort of sauce, boiling some sort of sauce, and he makes Robert Picardo stick his hand, burning his hand in the sauce. Mm-hmm. I was like, holy crap, these people are bad. That give us that idea. So it was interesting seeing Dr. Phlox, the way his actor sounds and stuff as a villain. It was great.
It was great to see him and Robert Picardo on screen together, the two chief medical officers of two different Star Trek series, but just seeing how they play off one another, I thought it was pretty well.
I agree. It was great. Now I'd love to see, do you think we'll ever see maybe Alexander Siddig?
Oh, Gates I would McFadden? Love to see him come in.
Yeah.
I would love to see him come in. I would love to see Gates come in. And if they could, I would love to see Dr. Pulaski come in.
Is she still alive? Diana Muldaur?
I think Diana Muldaur is still alive.
Okay. She'd be. Yeah, because she was in the original series. She's at least in her 80s now.
Mm-hmm.
So if she's still, she's still healthy enough, I'd definitely love to see her, come back, play a character in the Orville. Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest things is, the family's held hostage, and Alara basically tells them not to give in, because if they give in, they're going to get killed right away, because there's no reason why they would be kept alive. Mm-hmm. So Ed comes down on the shuttle and manages to create a window so that they can basically get rid of I'll call him, I forget his name. I'll get rid of Dr. Phlox and his evil wife. So they kill so I think Alara kills the wife, and then Phlox is trying to shoot her. They're hiding upstairs, and Ed gets shot by Dr. Phlox, and he's down, and his suit is about to lose power. And if the suit loses power, he's going to be crushed. So she tells her father to jump off the balcony and save him, and he's too scared to do it. And she basically gives him a little pep talk saying, I believe in you. You can do this. We need you now. You're the only one that can do this. And her father faces his fear. He jumps down. She manages to dispatch Dr. Phlox, and he manages to get Mercer back on the shuttle with a broken leg, with a snapped leg. But I actually laughed when I saw that. I was actually laughed when I saw that. Shame on me, but I thought it was a great thing. And then I forget, there was a treatment that they developed that Claire develops for Alara, so that she doesn't need to worry about staying for any longer on Saleya, but she ultimately decides to stay because Halston Stage wanted to leave the show. I don't know why she wanted to leave this show, maybe for a better role or something, but I thought this was a great role for her, and I hope she comes back.
Well, that's the thing about this episode. It does leave it open for her return.
Yeah, she. He literally tells her at the end, your position. You can come back to your position whenever you want. So, I'm guessing it's the same with the actress as well. So, I mean, she does come back, but she comes back in that alternate reality episode at the end of season 2, which will be covered in a future Sci-Fi chat. So, but yeah, I loved the ending was very touching. I loved she left a going away gift to Ed, and it's the thing that Ed's been telling her to do all the time. She gives him a jar of pickles.
Yep.
So,
and one of the things I liked about this episode was John Billingsley, his acting, and how scary he was in this episode.
Oh yeah, he was very menacing indeed. Like, just imagine Dr. Phlox, imagine an evil Dr. Phlox. That was what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But
it was crazy when, he was like, okay, now dip your hand in it. I'm like, oh, whoa, this guy's getting dark.
Yep.
Well, not only that, he was threatening to cut off Alara's sister's fingers.
Yeah. That's crazy. Like
it was interesting to see that their society isn't too much different from previous. I mean, I don't know about the Union currently. We haven't seen too much of Earth, but we can probably assume that it's the same kind of utopia that's happening in Star Trek. So there's no murder and everything going on. So it's interesting to see that Zileans, they suffer from that, psychopaths and murderers, even though that they themselves are very much of a pacifist compared to the Union.
Yeah, I mean, whenever there's emotions, especially strong emotions, there's going to be people like that, that can easily descend into villainy. And I mean, what happened to them was horrible. It was something that was beyond their control. And instead of, moving on, they couldn't. Some people your Anakins, your classical, tragic, characters, some people just don't know how to let things go. And they couldn't, losing a child, their child died by his own hand. I mean, that's probably the worst thing for a parent to deal with. Not just the death of a child, but a child dies of suicide. I mean, it's something that I'm not a parent, so I don't know what it's like, but my friend, two of my good friends who've streamed with me are both parents themselves. I think that's something they always worry about.
How could you not, as a parent?
Yeah, I mean, that's just what a parent does. It's the greatest fear. It's the worst thing in the world. And
when it comes to my family, I think about my grandmother. My uncle, who was my dad's youngest brother, passed away of cancer. My dad's middle brother, my other uncle, died of a heart attack. And then my dad also died of a heart attack before my grandmother died. So I can't even imagine how my own grandmother felt losing her 3 sons.
Yeah. So it's crazy what grief will do to a person. It's like, it takes a lot of strength to be able to let go of things. And I mean, and it's never easy. It's a big part of, I'm going to say this, it's going to sound racist, but it's part of the human condition.
It is.
And
it's true.
And Chancellor Gorkon's Dar would be calling me a racist right now for that. Because I said, human condition. Get it? So
human condition.
Human rights, so inalienable human rights,
Yep. But even that's powerful for, back in 1991 with her saying that.
Yeah. And you're in a greater community now. It's not human centric anymore. I mean, you're dealing with other species of, other planets and stuff. And I mean, it's
notice too how we haven't seen too many human, like, Union conflict, human on fighting another human within the Union happening yet. Like, same thing with the, what's it called? The Terran, what was it? Terra Prime in Enterprise.
Yeah.
We're not seeing any xenophobic humans yet, but I'm sure that they're probably gonna do that because in the end, it's inevitable. I mean, like you said, the human condition only goes so far, and some people are not, always nice and look towards expanding their roots and becoming a part of the entire galaxy. Some are probably more xenophobic than others. So maybe we'll see that in the future of the Orville, a more serious, grounded episode.
Maybe that'd be an interesting thing to see. So that basically concludes episode 3. So Alara is no longer on the ship, but we do meet a new character, Lieutenant Tharo. And he basically has a trunk, like an elephant trunk that goes into his stomach.
Mm-hmm.
So
played by Patrick Warburton.
Yep, Patrick Warburton. Joe from Family Guy. Bring it on, that one. And of course and Elaine's and he was in Seinfeld too. He was Elaine's boyfriend, the one that tells her she's going to hell. So
he was also in Men in Black too.
I do not remember Men in Black 2. So, but yeah, he basically plays an alien that basically eats on the bridge. He's like, oh, I shovel down food like it's like because he has 2 digestive systems or something.
Mm-hmm.
So he plows it all down and stuff. So we meet him. So it's interesting that we're seeing like more cameos, more appearances from Family Guy members. I'm just waiting for Alex Borstein, Seth Green, and Mila Kunis to make appearances on the Orville.
It could happen.
Yeah, that's what that'd be interesting to see. So if Seth, if you're listening, bring it on. I'd love to see.
And if you didn't say Nana Visitor, let's see Nana Visitor, please.
Nana Visitor, Alexander Siddig.
Oh, dude, that would
Terry
be awesome.
Terry Farrell, Brent Spiner, Armin Shimmerman. I'd say Avery Brooks. I would say Rene Auberjonois, but he passed away, so rest in peace, Rene Auberjonois, or if that's how you pronounce it, I forget. But yeah, bring back as many Star Trek actors as you can. I'd love to see them. I'd love to see new actors, shine in their roles. Just a great thing. So let's move on we got 2 more episodes left. So next episode 4 is called Nothing Left on Earth, Accepting Fishes. And if you didn't know what that's from a movie called The King and I, which I actually have not seen because I'm not a big fan of, I'm not a huge fan of musicals, even though I've seen Sound of Music several times because my mother loves The Sound of Music.
And, growing up in a household where my grandmother on my mom's side, my mom and my sister like musicals, I am very familiar with The King and I.
Yeah, same.
So basically,
it's a good story.
Sorry, I'll let you go. So yeah, do you have anything to say, Spock? I was gonna.
No, that was all I was. It's a great film. If I definitely recommend it, nerd, to see it.
Okay, I mean, when I think Yul Brynner, I think of the 10 Commandments. I think of the 10 Commandments, or I think of.
I can understand that.
The Magnificent Seven, or more recently, Westworld. Those are the 3 movies I really think of Yul Brynner. But going back to this, the name of this episode, Nothing Left on Earth Excepting Fishes. So basically what Yul Brynner is singing about, and of course, Ed explains this to Janelle Tyler, who comes back in this episode. They're still dating. If we keep distrusting each other, if we keep fighting amongst each other, there's going to be nothing left except the fishes. So that leads into this episode. They're dating. Janelle, they're watching The King and I with Janelle. Janelle's like, yeah, that's okay. They go on a further date. They decide to leave the ship. They take a shuttle to some planet. I forget the name of it. And they get captured by the Krill. And we learn they get captured, and they're questioning Ed. They want the Krill want like his command codes. They want to know where the fleets are located. The Krill are still bad guys at this point. So, and they show them. He gives them a fake thing, a fake code because they're torturing her. Well, we find out that they were never really truly torturing her. She's been one of them the whole time. Janelle is actually Talea. Same actress and all. The thing is, we never knew this. We never knew that was the same actress because she wore all that makeup in the last season. So Janelle is actually Talea. And Talea is basically talking to Ed. I forget she
very smart too, because that's something I guess I've never really seen before. That, anyways, where they show the alien cast first, and then we get to see her human half later on.
Yeah, that's correct. So
it's a very smart way of hiding the character.
Yeah, I don't know if they've ever done that with Star Trek. I'm not sure. I don't think they ever did. No, I'm guessing no. I'm guessing not. They haven't. So what happens is while they're holding Ed, the three Krill ships are under attack by these goblin-looking creatures called the Shaktau. And they basically are one of several people that the Krill have wronged because of their conquest, in the name of Avis. Because, Krill religion is basically like, Avis is the god or goddess. I don't remember if Avis is a god or goddess, but Avis created the Krill in his or her image, and they're supposed to be the center of the universe. So these goblins, just keep calling them goblins, they basically destroyed the ships. They board the ship that Ed and Talea are on, and Ed and Talea escaped via escape pod, and they land in California on a planet that resembles California, because it doesn't truly feel like Star Trek unless they're on a planet that resembles California. Do you guys agree?
Wholeheartedly. I mean, look at episodes of Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, where you can tell they're in Southern California.
That's the thing. That's the one issue I have with. That was another minor issue I've had with New Trek, is that they don't do that. They just they're always on. They're always on they're always inside. They're always on sound stages on set. They're never really. They're very rarely ever shot on location. And I think they shoot in Canada anyways. I think for Discovery. Not that anyone cares.
British Columbia, I believe.
British Columbia is beautiful. They crash on a planet, and they have to get to the high ground in order to establish communications with the Orville to be rescued. And at the same time, they're being pursued by the Shaktau. So there's a little bit of, to me, there's a little bit of Friday's Child in this episode. I kind of recognize a little bit because they're going uphill. They're on the run, and he's basically helping Talea get to the top because she's a Krill, she cannot handle the sunlight. She's not pregnant like the lady like Julie Newmar is in Friday's Child, but it felt like they're struggling to get up to the top of up of a cliff and stuff, or sorry, a mountain, and to basically get away from a pursuing enemy. So that's pretty much the A plot. And then the B plot is what we talked about earlier, is basically Gordon wants to enter the command program, and he ends up failing his test. He does a test simulation, and he does a Rorschach test, and every time Claire shows him a picture, he gets grossed out. He starts thinking like, "Oh my gosh, what is this? What is this? This isn't human." So, that's pretty much the B plot. I don't think they ever really resolved the B plot. Like they kind of forget about it at the end, I think. So, any thoughts on the episode so far?
I mean, it was a pretty good episode. I mean, you learned a little bit more about the Krill, and of course, one of the things we learned when Ed and Gordon went on to that krill ship to retrieve the Book of Avis and get that information back in season 1, is how sensitive they are to daylight. And that plays a factor into this episode when Janelle's on the planet with Ed. And what was it, 36 or 48 hours that daylight lasted on this planet? I can't remember exactly.
It was like a month. Like the day, a day is relative to a month of Earth time. So like the days are very, very long. The days are very long, and they don't have enough.
Like 25 days or something.
Yeah, and they don't have enough food or the time because they're being pursued to be able to hold out in the cave. So they go up to. So he basically covers her with his coat, and they go up to the top of the mountain. And while they're in the cave, like Ed is really trying to get her to think outside the box when it comes to, dealing with, kind of getting her to get rid of that thinking of, if you're not like us, then you're the enemy, because, according to their religion, if you're not a child of Avis, then you don't have a soul. You're not, you're not, we don't consider you, we don't consider you.
You're not worthy.
You're not worthy.
In their opinion.
It's already putting us in like a difficult position to negotiate, So they're already viewing us as soulless. So how the heck are we supposed to get around that claim,
So instead of, if this was New Trek, they would
show
just
them
simply
soul
say,
music.
if this was New Trek, they would basically say, "Oh, you're just so a this and a that and a this and a that," and would not get to the point. Whereas Seth MacFarlane is basically trying to get her to think outside the box, and basically he basically brings up the nothing left on Earth excepting fishes. That if we keep if we keep this up, there's going to be nothing left. We have to be able to find that common ground.
And that's something Star Trek used to do very well.
Yeah, I agree.
It didn't matter if it was the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. It used to do that very well. Now, no. It's too much 21st century nonsense.
I agree. So basically, they managed to get away. They Gordon. Gordon. I don't know if Gordon ultimately drops out of the command program, because we find out that his main motivation was to pick up chicks, and he felt like he just didn't want to be that guy that just like pilots all the time. But he ended up using really exquisite piloting skills to rescue Ed and Talea from the surface and get them away. So
yeah, that scene looked awesome too.
Oh, it did.
Because they were using a whole real, like, I forget, like a real desert, and then they added CGI rocks in the background that were stacked on top of each other, giving the illusion that it's an alien world.
Yeah, that was shot in California. It was basically shot in it was in California.
Was it Vasquez?
It wasn't Vasquez. It was let me look. Let me see. I forget where they shot it. It was in some Rocky Peak Park in California. So it was, I guess, I don't know if it's a national park, but it's there's obviously mountain, or there was obviously peaks and stuff to climb. So yeah, it looked really like a cool shot. I thought they actually shot in Colorado or in Wyoming or something like that. That's what it kind of looked like to me. But hey, it's California. California is cheaper because it's right there. Even though California is expensive as hell, I would never live there. But that's beside the point.
Once.
Oh yeah, you did. That's why you're Pacific as opposed to Atlantic.
Very true.
Okay, that was cringe. I'll shut up about that.
All right. I live on Vulcan, so.
Oh, I didn't know Vulcan was in California. That's awesome.
I've heard of Victor, California, but not Vulcan, California.
California.
Victorville.
No, California's big enough. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this was a decent episode. It was, it was a Brandon Braga and actually Andre Bormanis episode. So they worked on the last episode they worked on from season 1 was the episode where Claire and Isaac crash onto another California looking planet. So I'm guessing next season there's going to be a similar episode that they write, which is going to involve crashing on a California looking planet. Maybe this time it'll be a Kalon, and maybe it'll be a Kalon that's not Isaac, and maybe Bortus. Maybe it'll be that.
Maybe.
Who knows what type of comedic moments we'll see in that.
This gives me an idea to look up and see how many episodes Brandon Braga wrote for the various Star Trek spinoffs, and those episodes involved a shuttle crashing and being destroyed.
He was very Brandon Braga is a big fan of David Lynch. He's a big fan of David Lynch, and who else is he a big fan of? He's a big fan of another director. So like a lot of his episodes are very out there. Like he wrote the episode he came up with the concept for Frame of Mind, that one where Riker is in where Riker like just dreaming that he's in a mental ward, and I think he actually is. I forget if anything.
That was a scary episode for me because I was like, could not picture myself living through that. That'd be really scary and tormenting.
Yeah,
and
I mean, it was
that Mask episode where Data is possessed and he goes, Asaka is waiting.
I don't know. I have to find out.
I feel like we're gonna see some episodes in the future of Ed maybe going through some tough ordeals as well, similar to those. Because we haven't really seen him, suffer through anything yet with consequences. The only thing I would say is the event where they were thrown into that alien zoo.
Yeah.
But I can't really think of anything more serious that he's been in.
I got a question for you guys about that.
We might get a Chain of Command episode for him. What do you have?
I got a question for you about that. Do you think we'll ever see that race again? Because according to the wiki, I don't know if this has ever been confirmed, but according to the wiki, that race is the only one that can take on the Kalon, like that could be superior in terms of their civilization in general being superior to that of everyone else. Hence they look down on everyone else. Not the Krill, the race that holds Kelly and Ed in the zoo, and then they get that episode of Real Housewives or something.
Yeah, all the reality TV shows.
There was a in the two-parter that we'll talk about in another stream. I remember there was something said by Ed where he was like, the Kalon would never go in this part of space because it's an even match, pretty much. Was he talking about those species, the zoo?
I don't know.
I forget because
he might have been referring to the Union and the Krill, because I won't get too far ahead, but we all know what happens at the end of Identity Part 2 between the Union and the Krill.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely going to be
I was curious because they might have introduced a hint there as who might be just as strong as the Kalon, because we know that the Kalon are pretty much the most powerful in that quadrant of space.
Yeah, that's true. So, we'll see. I really can't wait. It's 2 months and 10 days. So
I know, man.
That's why I'm
looking
that's
forward to it.
It's a big reason why I'm doing this stream.
Wait. I've been waiting 2 years now.
Yeah, it's gonna be 3 years. It's gonna be 3 years since season 2. This is 2019, early 2019. So, all right.
This shows how dedicated we are about it if we're talking about it now in prep for season 3.
Yep.
Right.
So because, we have
we introduced. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we have one more episode left to talk about. This episode, I initially did not like at all. I saw this when it first came out, and I did not like it. I rewatched it, and I don't dislike it nearly as much, but there's few things I feel did not land well with me. So, and I'll be honest, this planet, this civilization, I cannot stand them. I think they're jerks. Just oof.
The Who in the Federation?
No, the next episode. All the world is a birthday cake. So so there's this planet. There's a planet called Rhaegor 2. They're about maybe late 21st century, speculatively, the late 21st century technology. They're able to send maybe early 21st century, present technology. They send a signal out saying, "Hey, is anyone out there?" The prefect and whoever. So they come off as like, oh, they seem like they're kind of enlightened. They want to, be friends with other races. They're open-minded. So
it was a cool intro. I won't lie.
Yeah, it was.
It was interesting. I like the way that they said they introduced that scene with the "Is anyone out there?" was very cool, and how because it felt like an honest to God first contact scene where they landed on the planet and were welcomed by all those people, and then it just started getting weird.
Yeah, I mean, you can, they send that out, and so you think of the episode First Contact and the movie. Well, maybe not the movie so much, but the episode of TNG First Contact, and you think of the type of procedure that you have to go through in order to make sure nothing goes wrong. And I'm guessing with the Union, they don't really do much of that because they kind of go in. They came in, they were they pick up the signal after the credits. They pick up the signal. Everybody's faces just shine, like everybody's super excited, super happy that they get to participate in a first contact, because obviously in this universe it doesn't happen every day. It probably happens very rarely compared to Star Trek, where Star Trek they have like you have the Prime Directive, and they have like a policy, or they have a procedure on how to properly conduct.
I really enjoyed the music sequence too, when they were getting ready to go and see the planet that was asking for anybody out there. I hope we see similar scenes just like that, and that this doesn't end up to be the only first contact event in the show, because that's my favorite part about especially this genre. Not just talking about Orville or Star Trek. It's always been about exploring alien planets that have never been visited before. That's always the best part.
I agree. I don't know how much they're going to be doing that with what they're trying to build towards. It seems like they're building towards a more space epic approach based on this season, which is basically really where the show starts to take more of an action drama, as opposed to season 1, which was more of a comedy / allegorical episodic series. So we might see. We might see some of that. I think they're not going to shirk away from that. But going back, they get on a shuttle. So Ed, Kelly, Bortus, Kiali, and is it Kiali? Yeah, Kiali and Claire. They land on the planet. And of course, the way it looks like with the big line of crowds, they're waiting for them to land and stuff, made me think of the Day the Earth Stood Still, the original from 1951.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
So only difference was you didn't see the military there, or if we did see the military, we didn't see them, so they didn't shoot at at them when they came out. So it went better than how Day the Earth Stood Still went. But they go in, they're going around, they're meeting everybody. Claire goes to the hospital, and she learns that they're forcing births. They're forcing babies to be born prematurely because of this astrological sign that they're trying to avoid, which is called the Gilliac. And the Gilliac are basically people that are prone to violence and uncontrolled emotional outbursts. And it's funny, when who's a Gilliac? I'm a Gilliac. Can you believe that? Gilliacs are people born in November, so I guess it's equivalent to Scorpio. So I'm a Gilliac.
Make sure don't go to that planet.
Yeah, I cannot go. Hence why I hate this planet so much, because I can't go to that planet. But basically, if you're a Gilliac, you're born a Gilliac, you are mandated by the government, and I'm just saying mandate because, right now it's a very dirty word to a lot of people, and I don't blame them, but they're mandated to turn over children, babies that are born, to the government with heavy consequences if they fail to do so. And these people are are put into prison camps and are treated like second-class citizens. So we don't know this until after they arrest Kelly and Bortus, because Kelly, in all of her great wisdom, told them about her birthday. Because, you figure, talking about your birthday is a very, harmless thing, right? Well, no, actually, when it comes to you're dealing with any alien race, you got to be careful what you say. I mean, you have to be in my opinion, you have to be as by the book and as official as you can. I wouldn't go into any personal stuff or you could get in trouble, and she got in trouble. And then they all got arrested. It
was all going so well too.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. And everyone went from nice to all of a sudden completely two-faced and evil and just complete jerks after that. And after that, I hated that prefect guy. I thought he was a jerk. Here's my issue with this episode. I understand that they were trying to be more evolved and they wanted to, obviously Admiral Ted Danson told them, you have to come up with a way that's not forceful. I think Ed should have threatened to destroy one of their satellites if they didn't release them.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think there should have been a little bit of a show of force, because these people they went from being completely civil to all of a sudden being completely totalitarian. Mm-hmm. And it's like these people have no self-awareness. Like, we have a ship above, we can do stuff to you if you abuse our people like this.
Yeah.
And so so the big thing that I thought was the biggest waste of time, and I thought was a terrible idea, was when they tried to shoot the guards and try to escape, because that was fruitless. And then when they changed when they managed to undo the whole Gilliac omen by putting up a solar sail and reflecting the starlight that's been dead for thousands of years, to make it seem like the Gilliac sign is no longer, a bad omen, they just release them and that's it. After they killed a whole bunch of their people, no consequence. I mean, they were about to be executed, but then they just got released. And I thought it made no sense when I first saw it, and I see it again, and they simply should not have had that clip. I think everything else would have made sense, but they should not have tried to kill those guards. What should have happened was they should just simply tried to escape, sneak out, or rescue the baby that got taken away from that couple, that the husband ratted out on them. So, any thoughts on that?
Well, man, because I feel the same way as you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You don't disagree with me, because I might be in the minority on this one. This is just the way I thought about it.
Personally, I agree with your opinion on it.
I found this episode unsettling because, there was no repercussions for the actions that these people took for who knows how many years.
Yeah.
Killing people just because they were born under a certain sign, in a certain month for all these years, and there were no, consequences paid forward to these people.
I mean, this was one of the few times I was like, do I want to keep? I literally questioned, like, do I want to keep watching this show? And so I watched the next few episodes. I didn't watch them right away. I didn't even watch Identity right away. It wasn't until I saw like a review, someone left a review, and there was so many articles talking about Identity that I watched the rest of the episodes, and then Identity just completely blew me away. I was like, holy crap, this is the best thing I've seen in years. This is better than anything that New Trek has provided. And this was when I was still watching Discovery. I was still giving Discovery a chance. But what really killed my interest in Discovery was how the season 2 ended. And then Picard just cemented my, will not watch any more New Trek because of Picard season 1. So, but that beside the point, identity was like something I really wanted to see, and every character had a chance to shine. I know we're going to talk more about this in the next episode, but yeah, this episode nearly killed my viewing for Orville, and I'm after rewatching it, it's not nearly as bad as I thought, but I still don't think it's not one of their stronger episodes.
Well, but I personally just didn't like how it was settled, you know, like what you're saying with the whole Gilead camp and everything. It didn't really set up a good message. But at the same time, I don't know if I was completely turned off from the show because of this episode. I mean, I usually believe that every show has a pretty dry, not interesting one because it's kind of hard to keep the flow going always. And I mean, TNG has showed that. The original series has showed that. I mean, I should say Cat's Paw, but you know,
Cat's Paw.
Yeah, it's just it's just one of those. It's one of those 6 out of 10 episodes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I will give All the World Is a Birthday Cake 6 punk waddles out of 10. That's my unit of rating things now.
And you know, with this episode, I guess you could say that this episode is also telling you that in life, there's no such thing as a happy ending. Even with all these atrocities committed, there's no happy ending to this story.
No, I mean, you either move on or you don't. That's basically what it is. And I'm just watching that episode 10, which is the episode where they kind of go Star Trek 6 in a way with, you know, developing, you know, relations with the Krill after the events of Identity. And they bring up that same thing. Like, are we just that whole episode was about, you know, this guy wants revenge and is willing to kill more and more Krill because he was in a camp for 20 years. And just happens to escape. And he's just like, were we just going to forgive them? Are we just going to let bygones be bygones after what they did? You know? So yeah, it's like you said. Yeah. It's like you said. It's like what Ed says in that episode. That's why we don't get are able to accomplish peace trees every day. That's why it's a big freaking deal. Yeah. So, but that's going to be the we'll talk about that episode, the one after the next one. So, any final thoughts? Do you want to rank the episodes based on what you like, or give it a score, or give any of the episodes scores if you want to do that? Start with Mike.
I mean, if I'm gonna give most of the episodes a score, these first 5 episodes, a lot of them to me are a 4.5, with the exception of episode 5. You know, that to me is more of a 3.
4.5 out of 5. You're talking about out of 5, right? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like 4.5. Like, wow, that's pretty bad. Like, I was thinking you were going to do it out of 10.
No, if I'm doing it by my rating scale, 4.5 out of 5 for most of the episodes.
I'll remember that, Mike. You're a hard person to please. I'll remember that. But okay, that makes perfect sense. 4.5 out of 10. So good. That's basically an A. So 90. That's a 90%. So that's roughly A-. So yeah. What about you, Spock? How do you feel? Get it?
Which episode again is this one? I forget.
Oh, just all of them, or just like all the episodes.
Out of all these episodes,
like, do you have a favorite one? How would you score them?
Give me a second on this, because it is a pretty interesting chunk of episodes we got here. I would have to say my favorite one is probably, as funny as it was, Primal Urges, but I don't know if all of these were the most exciting episodes, so definitely a 6 out of 10
for all
these 5. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So for me, my favorite, I'm going to agree with Spock on this one. Primal Urges is the one that I enjoyed the most. I thought it had even though it had the most comedy, it also had the highest of stakes, in my opinion. And it just ended super well. I just loved how it ended. And it moved me. And a lot of, I mean, if you can move me emotionally, then the writing is, in my opinion, superb. So Primal Urges is my favorite. I give that a 9.5 out of 10. My second favorite would probably be Home, because I loved Alara's final episode. It was cool seeing, Robert Picardo and John Billingsley together playing opposites, to each other. Mm-hmm. One good guy and one a hero at the end, and one a villain, one that dies a villain at the end. And of course, seeing Saleya for the first time was awesome. And it was another heartfelt goodbye. And I mean, we see her leave the jar of pickles, and it moved me, and I just loved seeing it. It was a very good episode. There was a lot of tension. There was a lot. I mean, the stakes weren't nearly as high, but they were pretty high. And we got to see Alara and her father. It starts out with tension, and then it becomes something more at the end. So something changes, and I really love that. So that's my second favorite. And then my third favorite is probably going to be Jaloja, because Jaloja, even though it's a bottle episode, I just felt like it was very entertaining. It made me like the characters more, all of them. And we got to see, new developments with, Kelly and Ed. There was that funny moment with the shuttlecraft, him spying on her from outside the ship. And of course, going, and then of course, all them preparing for the prom or for the event of, Bortus peeing off a cliff, which is hilarious. And then after that, Nothing on Earth Excepting Fishes was my next one. By the way, Home, I would give about a 9 out of 10. Jaloja, I would give about 85 out of, or 8.5 out of 10. Nothing Left on Earth Excepting Fishes, I'd probably give about an 8 out of 10. It was okay. I liked how they brought back Talea as Janelle, or as Janelle and stuff. That was a nice little twist. And that episode sets up identity in the later seasons with talking about potential peace talks. And of course, my least favorite is the birthday cake one with the astrology and stuff. That I'd give a 5.5 out of 10. So that's where I stand on these 5 episodes. So, you guys have any
5 out of 10? You said
5.5 out of 10. I've decided to be a little generous. So, you guys have any closing thoughts? Anything before we conclude this? Stream?
Yeah, thanks for the mug.
Orville.
Yeah, if you haven't watched the Orville is a great series. It's on Hulu right now, and there's 26 episodes, I believe. 12 in season 1 and 14 in season 2. And season 2 is amazing, and season 3 looks like it's going to be even more amazing. So, unlike New Trek, where it gets continually worse, this show, like classic Trek, good Trek, real Trek, gets better. Well, for most of the time.
Mm-hmm. And if anyone's curious, season 3 is coming out March next year on the 10th. Year.
Oh, yeah, next year, you're right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. March 10th, so it's going to be on a Thursday. So I do plan on doing after shows, and I'd love to have both of you on to talk about the latest episode. It would be like probably an hour and a half long stream, and we could definitely pick it apart and stuff. So I can't wait for that. And so I'm not sure when I'm going to do the next episode. Hopefully maybe next Thursday or whenever you guys are free and stuff. I could bring you both back if you want to come back.
Always come in.
So next time it will be episode 6, 7, 8, and 9. So episode 6 is basically what is episode 6? That is the I think that is the that's the one where Claire and Isaac develop to go on a date and stuff, and we see a lot of funny moments. Bortus has the mustache. Yep. Episode 7 is another Mocklin episode, so that's one I definitely want to talk about. That was a really good episode. Ends on a very serious note, and of course the epic 2-parter. identity, and that's going to be a hell of a conclusion for next time. So I'm aiming for next Thursday. So if you guys want to come back on, I'll see if there's anyone else that likes the Orville that I can bring on. I don't know who else likes the Orville though. So I think
Paul's getting into it, but he's watching it all for the first time.
Yeah. So and Paul generally does.
What about Crit?
Crit hasn't watched it. I know Crit hasn't watched it.
Okay.
Not yet, at least. So.
What about Brandon?
I don't know. Maybe I'll have to ask him. I'll see if he can do it. So we'll find out. So next week we'll continue a Nerdporeal Sci-Fi chat number 2, covering the Orville's season 2, episodes 6, 7, 8, and 9. So remember, be there, be square, and remember, to be Nerdporeal is to be happy. And stay Nerdporeal, everyone. And you guys want to say goodbye in your own ways?
Live long and prosper, everybody.
Well, for everybody that's here, you're a Nerdporeal, but you're also a 414.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming by, and have a good rest of your holiday. Take care.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.